Okay, welcome back. This is the second video in the series on the U.S. government. If you have not watched the first one, please go back and watch it first because I don't want to be referencing things that you've missed out on. Um, this video, I think we're going to be just going back and covering more in depth the idea of politicians' job being to represent everyone in an impartial manner instead of this partisan red team versus blue team kind of contest, which puts half the country against the other half of the country. Now, why would they do that? Clearly, if all of the politicians would go to Washington and try to figure out how everybody could get along and seek that kind of middle ground solutions, the country would be in a lot better shape than it is today. So why aren't they? And there's, I'm not a fan of the tinfoil hat kind of conspiracies where you've got, some evil villain hiding in his mountain lair, stroking his cat, just trying to do evil for evil's sake. That's not what happens. It comes down to people have different points of view, and then they get a little carried away. Um, and, and these things have momentum. You get used to doing it, and this is not something that one person has done. This is something that has been decaying in our government for decades, maybe centuries of things just, you know, they're going a little bit wrong. People don't like it, but then everybody gets used to it, and as it becomes the new standard, then things go a little bit worse. And I remember some video, a newscaster out on the street, just asking people if they believed that politicians were corrupt. And the thing that got me about this on the street thing, just despite what their poll eventually turned up, was whether the people said yes or no to the poll. The first response from almost everyone they spoke to was to laugh. The idea that politicians are not corrupt is laughable, and that's, as a politician, I would find that embarrassing. And that's true in polls today. People have no faith in the politicians. With the current um, news going on in the Justice Department, um, the U.S. Supreme Court, people have no faith in them now. They've behaved horribly um, in terms of partisan favoritism as opposed to the impartiality that they're supposed to represent. Um, and that's not, I'm not picking sides on whether I like what they did or didn't like what they did in terms of the results. I'm talking about in terms of being a cog in the wheel of the country and how our government is supposed to work. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're just blatantly playing for one side. That's another video. We're not going to get into that now. Politicians in general, why would they play for one side or the other? Why would they present that? Why would they do that? And it's pretty clear that what they're doing is they're concerned about getting reelected. And in getting reelected, they're concerned about making 51% of the people in their district or area or whatever, their the voters who are going to have them on the ballot, they need their 51% to get elected. And you don't like not knowing. You don't want to have these uh, big question marks, where I know I've got 30% of the votes, and I'm pretty sure my opponent's got 30% of the votes, and then there's just these 40% of the people we have no idea what they're going to do. That that would drive people crazy. So they really want to lock you in. They want to know that they're going to get the 51 votes, the 51% of the votes that they need, and they do that by convincing the people that they need to vote for that politician, for that whatever. And they do that by over dramatizing any social conflict they can get into. Things that they could settle, mediate, find a middle ground for, and be done with. But if they can make it a bigger deal, that you feel injured by, or you feel like they're trying to convince you that people on the other side of the argument are the enemy, and you need them to go to Washington and make laws to fight for your side. I mean, how many politicians do you hear when they're on the campaign trail telling you that they're going to go to Washington and fight for you? Implying there's a fight means that half of the country is in conflict with the other half of the country. And that's not good. But the politicians want you to believe it, because believing that there's a fight and believing that you need to have some kind of champion gladiator in the ring fighting for your side locks you into the vote. If they know they've got you that worked up and that this is a big deal, and somebody's got to do something about it, and we need this politician to go to Washington and do something about it. And, well, nobody gets hyped up like that about middle ground mediation, and because those de-escalate things and those calm things down. Just getting people worked up, that just makes the situation worse. If somebody pushes you, you say, well, get up and push them back. That never that never de-escalates a fight. That only makes it worse. And encouraging people to pursue their pound of flesh for anything they feel like they've done wrong, that's just a Hatfields and McCoy kind of thing, where nobody's really going to agree on how much has been wronged and how much so fights like that just turn into this shoving match back and forth, is always just going to escalate out of control. But even though it feels like you're making gains, it's one thing to get pushed down. Getting up and pushing back still feels like you're at least doing something. At least you feel better about yourself. But in terms of making the fight come to an end, you're not. You're making the fight worse. You're making it more dramatic, which increases your need for a politician to be in office, making this legislation for you. And they make these overly partisan laws. They try and pass these over, even if they know they're not going to pass, they still put them out there so that they can point fingers at other politicians. Like, well, I put this out there for you guys, and those guys shot it down. And they just keep drawing these lines of half the country against the other half, and they're only doing it to lock in those votes. And you don't need a fighter. I'm that's like the fastest turn off for me for any politician I look at. If they're talking about going in there and fighting, I don't want a fighter. I want a representative. I just want somebody to take my concerns and make sure that they're a part of the discussion. When they are working out how they're going to settle everything, I just don't want to be forgotten. Okay? I don't want everything my way, because that's not going to be fair for other people who don't want things my way. But I just want to be included. I want to be fairly included as they work things out. And that's what you need a representative for. Somebody to just make sure that your concerns and your whatever are being addressed while the laws and while the governance is being fine-tuned and laws are being made. And I don't know. I mean, we've already discussed the how the political parties filter the candidates, before you even get to the primaries. They're filtered out by only the people who are pandering to the money make it into the primary elections, and so you're kind of in a losing state of the big end politicians. You have to find a way to put pressure on them. The best way to put pressure on them is to not vote for them. Find your independence. I mean, Bernie Sanders. He's fun to watch. He is. I mean, if you didn't have that whole crazy old man vibe, which I guess I'm a little partial just to the crazy old man vibe. But find your independence. Find your people who are not completely selling the stick for the big groups, because they're really not representing. They're not your representatives. They're representing their parties, and they're very blatantly doing it. You need people who understand that they're supposed to play the middle of the field, that they're supposed to keep the government working for everybody and not just for the one side. And they're not supposed to be spending your taxpayers' dollars sitting in their office when they're supposed to be doing their job, and instead spending all of their time and all of their resources and all of your dollars trying to get reelected, because that's not what they're supposed to be paid for. They are supposed to be representing everyone equally. They're supposed to be making life for everyone better. And you don't have to look very hard to notice that that's not happening. And again, this is not a channel about me telling you all the answers, because I don't have all the answers. This is talking about the problems and what we know about them, and asking you what you think. If you have any feedback on how we can straighten that out without marching on the Capitol like a bunch of idiots with guns. Let's hear it. My 2 cents is get involved as much as you can. If it's just starting conversations with people at work, if it's just going to your local city council meetings, just to let them know you're there, and to ask questions. You know, try and understand a few of the issues going on, and don't get sucked into the tunnel vision of just the one thing that they want to talk about because that's what their buzzwords are. But try and get a good big picture view of how it impacts your life, how it impacts everybody else's life, and ask direct questions. Why are you doing this? How do you think that's going to affect this group of people? What do you think that's going to do to the mom and pop store owners in town? What do you think that's going to do to jobs available? Um, and because maybe your politicians haven't thought about that. Maybe they got caught up in some other part of the project. I know when I spent my time on council, it was easy to get sucked into things because you start talking to, you're not an expert about everything. You have to deal with experts, um, civil engineers and whoever for whatever project you're on. It's very easy to just start listening to what they tell you without really thinking through the outcomes. So just encourage people to think. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do on this channel is encourage people to think. So yeah, if anybody's got thoughts on that in the comments, I'd love to hear them. I don't want to beat this topic up too much, but it is an issue that I think everybody should be aware of and everybody should think about whenever you start listening to any politician talking about what they're doing and talking about why you should vote for them. And if they are re-emphasizing the fact that the country is being presented as this half the people against the other half of the people, and that you need to fight to win. That kind of contest, even if you win, you're talking about half the people in the country losing. And that's not what our founding fathers were looking for when they put this country together. They weren't saying it's like, hey, let's let everybody have just a big free for all, and we'll just crush half the population. No, no. This was a melting pot. Everybody was supposed to be able to get together and find ways to get along, to tolerate each other, and do things. And I don't see a lot of that happening from the politicians. They're the ones in charge. They're the ones supposed to be giving our society structure. And if they are trying to convince you that things are worse just to try and make you vote for them, that carries over. I mean, that it does more than just get them their vote. It leaves everybody that they've convinced of that their existence in the country is a fight against other Americans. And you look at the violence and the riots and just the hate that gets thrown back and forth because of these issues. And your politicians are encouraging it for their own benefit. And we don't need that. we don't need that at all. And you definitely don't need to put people like that in office. As a parent who's had kids, okay, the golden rule is don't reward bad behavior. If you've got a politician who is doing something you don't like, don't vote for it. I mean, make a point of not voting for it. Talk to your friends about what you think they're doing wrong and why you're not voting for them. You know, hopefully the message will get across. When all of a sudden their votes start drying up, they're going to have to realize they're going to have to come up with a different game plan. All right, I think this is good for this video. I think the last video went a little longer than I wanted. So we're going to call this one here. Again, any thoughts or comments? Try to avoid just the straight, you're wrong and I think you're stupid because you're not, a hardcore whatever political party. Um, you know, Give me ideas, give me questions. Feel free to discuss any viewpoint. Um, Again, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and your opinion matters. So, I'm not trying to push my opinion in this channel. I really want to hear from people, and I really want to hear what they have to think and have to say. And we'll see you in the next video. Okay.